What's up? I'm Sam Ekstrom on an all-new Minnesota Sports Rank'em. On today's show, I give you the 5 likeliest Vikings veterans to be cut during this offseason period. What are the 5? You'll find out after this on Minnesota Sports Rank'em.
This is Minnesota Sports Rank'em, part of Locked On Sports Minnesota, and it starts now.
It's the show that settles debates and starts new ones. Minnesota Sports Rank'em. Hi, I'm Sam Ekstrom. I'm on Twitter at Sam Ekstrom, exec producer of Locked On Sports Minnesota. Also, I've covered the Vikings for 9 seasons, and the Vikings have a very important offseason ahead. Plenty of speculation on who's staying, who's going with all these high-priced veterans. On today's show, I rank the 5 likeliest to be going. After I tell you that today's show is presented by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. All right, first things first, make sure you subscribe to Locked On Sports Minnesota. Go hit the button right now on YouTube. And hey, if you're listening on a podcast, whatever app you prefer, go and give us a 5-star ranking, review. All of that helps other people discover the show. Appreciate that. These are the 5 names that I'm considering, people, on today's show. A lot of people are floating out Danielle Hunter's name. That is not a realistic cut. That is a trade piece. That is not a realistic cut. The dead cap is higher than the salary. You're not going to cut that player as he enters the last year of his contract. So he's not part of this equation. These are the 5 players that I'll be ranking likeliest to be cut from the Minnesota Vikings, in my opinion. Harrison Smith, Dalvin Cook, and this is in no particular order, Adam Thielen, Eric Kendricks, Za'Darius Smith. Those are the 5 that I am considering that are on the chopping block. Let's get started. Number 5, Harrison Smith. Now, you might be saying, whoa. I've been hearing that Harrison Smith is like the likeliest player to be cut. And when you look at his contract, when you look at his cap number alone, yeah, you might think that. Consider his age. He's the longest tenured Viking since 2012, and he is set to be worth $19.1 million against the cap. That is a prohibitive number. However, the dead cap, 11.7. So that brings the difference to about 7.4. So you could save $7.4 million to cut Harrison Smith. And personally, of the 5, I don't think that Harrison Smith is necessarily the most on the chopping block. Number 1, he has still remained pretty productive. Got up to 5 interceptions last year in a new scheme where a lot of people looked very uncomfortable. Harrison Smith didn't look uncomfortable. Harrison Smith is adaptable. He's a chameleon, and I think he will blend in perfectly in this Brian Flores scheme. Consider this stat. Brian Flores blitzed safeties 196 times when he was the Dolphins coach in 2021. Ed Donatel last year, just 19 times. That's more than 10 times less. And where does Harrison Smith thrive? In a box role, in a blitzing role where he can hover around the line of scrimmage. That might be a match made in heaven. Now, Harrison Smith didn't get to do a lot of that with Ed Donatel. I don't think that's because he can't do it. I think that's because the scheme didn't call for it. You don't know what you have in the injured Lewis Cine coming back from that broken leg. And you also, before he got injured, didn't know what you had in him as a player. Like, let's be honest about that. Lewis Cine was not exactly standing out like we expected him to in the preseason. So that's not a guarantee that Lewis Cine can just step in and replace Harrison Smith. I don't think that Harrison Smith is the likeliest to go. And in fact, I think of all these veterans, I think he's the least likely because of that big dead cap number and because Brian Flores is coming around and Harrison Smith can remain effective. Do I think that they will negotiate a pay cut? I do. I do think that. But I do not think that he will be a likely cut candidate because I think he is still valuable on this defense. And I don't think it would make sense financially. All right. Next on the list, after I tell you about FanDuel a little bit more. It's the middle of the NBA season, getting into playoff push time. You can download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000, and you can get that too if you download today. Get those bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. It's a safe, secure, super easy-to-use app. You can bet on everything under the sun. So many ways to win at FanDuel, and you can combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with the same game parlay. So don't miss your chance at that no-sweat first bet. $1,000 in bonus bets back when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon, FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more, make every moment more at FanDuel, an official betting partner of the NBA. All right, the next likeliest Viking to be cut of these 5 pricey veterans. And when I say pricey again, folks, I'm talking about 8-figure salaries or 8-figure cap numbers. Someone like Jordan Hicks, yeah, he's cuttable, but we're not including him in this discussion because he's not quite in the same financial stratosphere. Next on the list, it's Adam Thielen. Once again, he's in that same Harrison Smith boat. I don't think he's the likeliest to go. I don't care what his wife said on social media, how he might feel disrespected or whatever on Minnesota. I think that Adam Thielen has said everything you would expect somebody in his shoes to say. I want to remain a Viking. Also, I know it's a business. Also, they're trying to work something out. I think in the end, I think something will get worked out. I think he will take a pay cut. I do not think that he will be released from this team. And again, I'm not super high on what Thielen did last year. I think that he was hurt. I think that he was less than 100%, and his injury proneness has become an issue. Lowest yards per route run of his career by far. Lowest yak of his career. Wasn't great after the catch. Lowest contested catch rate. Passer rating when targeted was second lowest in his career. None of it was really overwhelmingly good for Adam Thielen. Now, there's only one football to go around. Justin Jefferson taking a large share of the targets. But if that's the case, didn't KJ Osborne look a lot better than Adam Thielen? I've been surprised, actually, that Adam Thielen hasn't been trumpeting from the mountaintops what he played through last year. Because anybody who had eyes knew he was playing through something. I would have expected that to be the first leak from his agency to say, hey, our guy was playing with a bruised MCL, strained something ligament. I don't know. I mean, obviously they're going to be truthful about it. It was clear that he was dealing with something, or maybe they don't want him to seem weak going into negotiations with other teams potentially. You never know where they're at with that. But so why am I lobbying for Adam Thielen to not be the most cuttable Viking? It's that salary. He's going to make $20 million against the cap, but 13.6 of that is dead. You're only saving $6.4 million against the cap by cutting Adam Thielen, who I think can still be productive in the red zone. I think is still a legacy on this team. I think he means a lot to that locker room. I think he's the perfect kind of right-hand man for Justin Jefferson, not only on the field, but I think that he's a great influence on Justin Jefferson as well as an older player. There are 4 other Vikings on this list where you can save more by cutting them. I don't think it makes sense to pay $13.6 million to not have Adam Thielen. This is another restructure candidate. I do not suspect that he will be cut in the same way I don't suspect that Harrison Smith will be cut because of the way those contracts look. So we've still got Za'Darius Smith, Eric Kendricks, Dalvin Cook as the 3 that I think could be on the chopping block. Who's next? It's Za'Darius Smith, number 3. Za'Darius Smith might have been one of the most effective. In fact, probably was the most effective of the 5 that I'm considering here. So why would he be even remotely a cut candidate? Well, you save $13.7 million. That's why. That is the largest savings represented by any one transaction the Vikings can execute this offseason. He is set to make $17 million against the cap, and the dead money is 3.3. $13.7 million, folks. Now, that's why you don't want to cut him. 4th in pressures last year. 6th in pass rush productivity. And he did that much of the year with a knee contusion. So you could say, well, I'm worried about his stamina, his injury proneness. Well, he was a top 10 pass rusher last year with that injury. And I think we saw how he looked without the injury earlier in the season. There's a lot of reasons to like Za'Darius Smith, and I think he's a culture changer. I think he's a locker room guy. He raises the tide on that defense. But $13.7 million. Now you might say, well, or can you go out and get anyone of his caliber, even if you have that money to play with? Maybe not. And that's why I've got Smith right in the middle, because I don't think that he is like an easy, no-brainer cut. I think we're getting to that. But I don't think that he is a surefire on this team next year. Before we get to number 2, thanks for making Minnesota Sports Rank 'em your first listen today. Make sure to check out Locked On Sports Today as well. The biggest stories around the sports world in 20 minutes or less, plus instant reactions, game recaps, and Locked On's take of the day. Locked On Sports Today available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. All right, 2 to go. Dalvin and Eric Kendricks. We're going to go with Eric Kendricks, second likeliest to be cut of these pricey veterans. 1.9 dead. That means you can save $9.5 million by making that cut. He is scheduled to count $11.4 million against the salary cap. Eric Kendricks did not take well to this scheme. Eric Kendricks has showed some pretty big deterioration the past 2 years. Now, last year, he remained the 19th best coverage linebacker, but he fell off into one of the worst run-defending linebackers in the NFL. But as long as he had the coverage, I think you were still okay with Eric Kendricks' skill set. Last year, 93rd of 102 linebackers in pass coverage. The question is, was it scheme or was it skill? Well, Eric Kendricks has had his peak, folks. We saw it. 2018, 19, 20. Peaking in 2020 when he was maybe the best linebacker in football. All-pro level player. At some point, you start to decline. Players at that position don't have long, drawn-out peaks. Usually you get a 2-3 year window in your late 20s where you get to experience that when the physical part and the mental part converge, and that's what Eric Kendricks had. It's leaving him. He's going to be on the wrong side of 30. 93rd in pass coverage last year, and he's entering a contract year. That's a lot of savings for a player that was not productive last season. Now, maybe he could be productive in Brian Flores' scheme, or you could go cheaper at a position that is arguably one of the least important on defense. You'd rather have better play in the secondary. You'd rather have better play on the defensive line than you would at linebacker. And if you can save almost $10 million in cutting Eric Kendricks, I think you have to do it. And that leaves Dalvin Cook. A lot of you have his jersey, the 33s, the number 4s. But folks, it's 2023, and in the NFL, you don't pay running backs $14.1 million in a season. Vikings can save almost $8 million by cutting Dalvin Cook this year. Dalvin has deteriorated, folks. He has declined in his efficiency. He's not breaking tackles like he used to. I think Dalvin Cook still has an explosiveness gene to him that will be missed. But when you go from 4.7 to 4.4 to 4.1 yards per carry, there is a clear sign of atrophy, maybe from all the hits he took in the Mike Zimmer era. Vikings used him liberally. He did a lot for this team. He's been here for 6 years, but the end is near. And you want to get out from these guys before you get into financial hole, before you're forced to play them when they're even less effective. The Vikings can get by with Ty Chandler, Kene Nwangwu, free agent off the street du jour, rookie du jour. They can have a stable of running backs that can do better than 4.1 yards per carry. Dalvin Cook had a career low in expected yards per rush, so even in the theoretical realm, it was not a good year for Dalvin Cook. Even if you say the blocking wasn't great, which it wasn't, Dalvin Cook still wasn't making much out of what he was given based on that expected yards per rush stat per next gen. And fumbles. Ball security remains an issue for Dalvin Cook, who has one of the highest fumble rates in the NFL among backs who carry the ball as much as he does, had 4 fumbles last year. Not great. Like Dalvin Cook's work over the years, but I think this is one of those tough financial decisions where you can't keep luxuries anymore. Dalvin Cook is a luxury. He is not an absolute need. And I think he's the most likely Viking to be cut to save about $8 million this offseason. What do you think of the list? Comment below on YouTube. Let me know if you agree, disagree. Again, the 5 in order: Harrison Smith, Adam Thielen, Za'Darius Smith, Eric Kendricks, Dalvin Cook, from least to most likely of those 5 veterans. We'll see what happens as we move forward, probably in the next month or so. It's Minnesota Sports Rank 'Em. I'm Sam Ekstrom, back soon with another exciting list as we settle debates and start new ones here on Locked On Sports Minnesota.